Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with our FY26 budget deliberations. Today's date is June 11, 2025. The time is 2 p.m. In attendance are Commissioners Eberline, Duncan, and Matari. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Are there any changes to the agenda? Hearing none. Public comment? Hearing none. We'll go into our first business item. FY26 budget brief, including C budget, which is capital expenses. It's an action item, and we'll have Brandy Falcon. Do you want to start it off?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brandy Falcon for the record. Today we're going to focus on the C budget portion of the FY26 budget requests.
She was concerned that she couldn't hear you.
Okay, we're going to focus on the C budget requests for FY26. Every meeting I reprint all the budget summaries for you. I put a little sticky tab on the ones that we're actually going through today so that you can see. We're going through the CapEx summary, the leases, and then I also have a printout of the fund balance there for your reference as well. So I wanted to start out by highlighting the preliminary summary. I'll try and zoom in so it's clearer on the screen. So if we've made a couple changes since last time, so we have a URD closing in Spirit Lake. So we have $97,000 back to the county for that. And you'll notice that it's labeled 90% estimated return. That's because there was a change in the interpretation of statute by the State Tax Commission, how they calculate those, and so depending on when the URD was created, it's either an 80 or 90% return to the county. So I've added that. I also added a line called one-time URD return of $162,000. That is, again, due to the reinterpretation of statute by the Tax Commission. The $162,000 is money that Kootenai County should have received with prior URD closures that should have been at 90%, but were actually calculated by the state at 80%. So I've added those two additional revenues at the top, and I also made a few budget cuts. The Sheriff's Office cut one patrol deputy request and the fleet management software. So those updates having been made, right now it is 0% tax increase. We are still at a deficit of $899,000. At a 1% tax increase, we are at a deficit of $279,000. At a 2% tax increase, we are at a surplus of $340,000. And then at a 3% tax increase, we are at a surplus of $960,000. So that's where the overall budget is at right now. I also made some changes to the requests per elected official summary based on some discussion at the sheriff's budget meeting yesterday. So the items in green on the left, these are really derived from requests directly from the elected officials. The items in kind of the orange color off to the right, these are outside of the control of the other electeds. These are really up to the board to decide. And that is the COLA, the steps on the anniversary date, savings by cutting open positions, the health insurance increase. And so those are kind of out of the control of the individual electeds. That's why I have them separated to the right. So if we go back over to the left in green, you can see this column, total proposed increases over FY25 adopted. So that is the total dollar amount per elected official that they're requesting in increases. Since our discussion at the sheriff's meeting yesterday, I did change in the system to make sure that the patrol fleet purchases budget and the jail 5-year plan budget are being reflected under the sheriff instead of under the board. So you can see total dollar amount requests per elected. And then if we go over a couple of columns, this column, percentage change over FY25 adopted budget without capital. So if you don't include capital requests, this is the percentage change request per elected official. Go over one more, and that is the percentage change per elected when you do include capital requests. So I added those kind of based on discussion from the board yesterday. So those are there for your reference. And I'm gonna go ahead and dive into leases unless you have any questions on what I've presented so far.
Any questions? No? Go ahead.
Okay, so we are going to start with, this is the lease summary. It was one of the pages that I marked with the orange sticky tab in your packets. This one should be fairly quick. So this is new this year due to a new accounting rules. Now our lease and software agreements are considered capital, and so they are in their own summary now. So most of these are current contracts and agreements that the board has already signed, and so Kootenai County is currently in these contracts. The dollar amounts budgeted here for 2026 in the 2026 request column, those are simply the contract and lease amounts for next year. The only one that's new is on line 5, and that is a request from AMP for their new TASER contract. So similar to a few years ago, the sheriff's office entered a new TASER contract. It's now AMP is doing the same thing. And due to the terms of the contract, it's considered capital. So that's an increase of $13,000. And does the board want to approve or cut that request?
Thoughts?
I think it's a necessary tool for them, so I'd like to approve it, but we're not here to assign money yet, right?
So these items are all funded with property tax
Okay.
because they are ongoing contracts and agreements.
Okay.
So this 13,000 would be funded with property tax.
Okay. So I think it's the radios I'm thinking of.
The radios that you're thinking of are in B budget.
Right,
So we'll
and-
get
and
to
we can-
those at our next budget meeting.
Okay.
Mark? No, we're good.
All right, so I'm gonna mark that as approved, and we are done with leases. So now I'm going to move into the CapEx summary, that stands for capital. It is this one, it's also in your packet, so you have it in front of you. We'll try and zoom in a little bit more. So I'm gonna start at the top. We usually always start with restricted funds first. So lines 1 through 8 are all capital requests from solid waste, and they are all being funded with solid waste's restricted fund balance. Solid waste already presented all of these in detail to the board at their budget meeting. Do you want me to go through each of these individually again, or are you comfortable approving solid waste's requests as they are here?
I'm comfortable.
Yeah, thoughts? Yep, go
Okay,
ahead.
so I'm gonna mark solid waste as approved. Okay, so moving down to line 9, this is a request from the assessor's office. This is an ADA request to make some modifications to their office space. It is $12,000 and it's being funded with their Fund 46 restricted fund balance. Approve, deny?
I thought we were
questions?
going to talk about this further before we
Yeah.
got into that, so we'll talk about that later.
Okay, so
Yeah.
maybe if, I thought that as well, but it didn't get brought forward in an HR meeting, so do you want me to communicate that to the assessor, or are one of you going to communicate?
He's here, so we can communicate. I think putting it on the HR meeting for next Wednesday is appropriate. I don't think, in my mind, we're not going to get through all these requests to make hard decisions today. There's several of them that I can do that. But yeah, I think going to HR and talking about that ADA request would be appropriate. Then we can circle back and say
Yeah.
yes or no.
Yeah, we're just going to run through this. If there's
Oh, yeah.
anything that stands
Yeah.
out,
I mean,
then
I'm definitely
we'll
gonna
talk about
ask
it.
for a decision, and you can tell me if you wanna wait
But,
or not.
but any yes today is probably a continuation, but to be determined later.
Yes, you can always change your mind up until we approve the budget,
Yes.
so.
All right.
All right, going to line 10, this is a BOCC budget. So this is a request from Parks, $20,000 to help pay for Micah Bay boat launch. It's being split down below with line 15 in the Parks Fund 35. So it's being funded partially with Fund 38 restricted fund balance and then Fund 35 restricted fund balance, and it is, I believe, improvements to Micah Bay boat launch. Approve, deny, hold off for now.
I'm fine.
Mark? on the boat launch, Parks and Waterways. It's like 20,000. And it's split from restricted funds and another, what was the other?
It's split between two restricted funds, our public access fund and our parks fund. So it's being paid for with restricted fund balance. And it's improvements to the Micah Bay boat launch.
We'll just continue it and decide later.
I'm fine with both the Upper Twin and Micah Bay boat launch doing those
Okay.
things.
Okay, I'm gonna mark that as approved for now. Going down to line 11, this is a request from the sheriff's rec safety budget in the vessel fund for a sonar ROV. Would you like, and it's being funded with restricted funds. Any questions on that, or do you feel comfortable approving or cutting the request?
Thoughts?
I'm fine with it. We just approved half of it. We approved the machine, and this is just the robotic part to help it get to where it needs to go.
Mark?
So is that two? Two yeses, or?
I think that's probably good for the sheriff's.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna mark that as approved. So going down to line 12, this is a request for a pickup from Parks, and it is split in funding between their vessel fund on line 12 and their regular Parks fund balance on line 14. And, okay, they have it split 4 ways. And then line 16 and 17 with noxious weeds restricted fund balance and boat launch restricted fund balance. So in total, it's a $55,000 request for a pickup, all being funded from restricted funds with the Parks Department.
I'm fine with that.
You good with that?
I think so.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm gonna mark that as
We'll keep it on there.
approved. Okay, so next,
Final.
It's not final.
oh, it's not, wait. Oh, is it not approved then?
Well,
Okay.
we're saying yes today, but deciding tomorrow.
Okay. So for now, should I mark yes?
Just keep it on there.
Perfect, it's staying on there. Okay, line 13 and line 18 are a split request for a snowmobile from the sheriff's office. So on line 13, 4,500 of it is being funded with snowmobile revenues in their snowmobile budget. On line 18, 12,500 is being funded with property tax right now. That is their new property tax funded snowmobile budget because the snowmobile revenues are no longer enough to cover their operations. So you do have the option of funding the 12,500 with fund balance instead of property tax if you wanted to.
Question.
Yes.
What's the going rate today of snowmobiles?
About 15 to 17,000. They're not cheap anymore, Commissioner.
So how are we gonna get a $12,500 snowmobile that's not,
Right. It's 12,500 from the tax supported budget plus 4,500 from the restricted fund budget, so total is $17,000.
good?
Yeah.
Okay?
Mark that as approved.
Keep it on there.
Okay, are you okay leaving the 12,500 funded with tax dollars?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna leave that. Line 15, this is just the other funding split for the Micah Bay boat launch improvements and Upper Twin boat launch improvements, again from restricted funds. And I believe the board said they were okay with that.
Keep it on there.
Okay. So going down to line 19, now we're gonna start getting into requests that are currently all being funded with property tax. So something to consider as we go through these is, remember, we have $5.5 million right now of interest revenue budgeted. How much of that does the board feel comfortable utilizing for ongoing costs?
Well, I think we discussed that with the treasurer and keeping that around 40%.
I don't remember the percentage. I was thinking we could do 3.5, which I think is a little bit aggressive. And then 2.2 million would be for capital, for one-times. Getting an 8 million return, a 9 million return,
Well, that's not going to continue.
I understand that, but that's why just budgeting 3.5 in ongoing expenses is aggressive, but I think it's fair to the taxpayer.
So if we're gonna do that, if we're gonna use 3.5 million of interest for ongoing costs, that means we want to use $2 million of interest for one-time costs, which would be capital. So that means that we want to have $2 million of capital requests that are not using fund balance. So as it stands right now, before you make any cuts, we have $986,000. So we actually need to reduce our fund balance usage by about $1 million. That will be very easy to do. I can already.
The $2 million of elections is
Or
one
actually,
spot.
what we've usually done is just the 5-year, either the patrol vehicles.
or the
The
5-year.
patrol vehicles would be the easiest one.
Yeah.
Because, in theory, we do buy cars every year, so
Yeah.
when we get to that line. So what I'm saying is I would leave the ones that are property tax, if you're gonna approve them, leave them as funded with tax. And that means they'll be offset with interest. So, I'll keep going down the list. So, line 19 is a request from the jail. It's a conveyor system for inmate property, and it is $71,000. I believe this was also requested last year. Do you want more details on this, or do you feel like you could make a decision?
Thoughts on that?
I would actually like to wait until the pods are up and running and functioning and see how everything shakes out before we start a whole new system there. That's just my personal thoughts. And then that would include, I think, the vacuum sealer, but we'll have to get further details because maybe the vacuum sealer is separate and they don't go together. But that's just my thought. I don't really like approving new things when we have other things in motion.
Mark?
I concur, because
There you go.
Okay, so it sounds like we're going to go ahead and cut the request for the conveyor system from the jail. Line 20 is also a request from the jail. There are several items in this line. So there's a request for an inmate clothing vacuum sealer, $18,000. And I believe that goes along with the conveyor system. So if you're gonna cut the conveyor system, like the jail can correct me if I'm wrong, those are connected, right?
Okay, yes, there's a thumbs up, so.
So I think
Okay.
that we'll go ahead and cut the vacuum sealer since it goes along with the conveyor. There's a request of $14,000 for a food cutter for the kitchen. A mail secure, which I believe is a machine for scanning mail, $55,000. And then mesh for unit 1 of $28,000.
Thoughts?
I think that the food cutter, I didn't look this morning, but I think that the food cutter is a necessity. We have to feed people. The mail secure, I think, is a pretty nifty idea to help protect, well, not just the inmates, but our folks handling the mail coming in. And I watched a little video on it today, and it looks pretty interesting. So I'd be okay for keeping that.
Mark,
It-
your thoughts? Oh, I'm
I think
sorry.
it's an interesting idea.
My concern is the $11,000 a year of ongoing cost. So I
Yes.
just want to keep that in the forefront of our mind.
So I guess keep for now.
All right, so I'm gonna mark those items as keep for now. You can always come back and cut them later if you'd like. Line 21 is again a request from the sheriff's maintenance department, $169,000. So 56,000 of that is a garage for SWAT and maintenance, and then 113,000 to install a wall for Marine.
Thoughts?
I think now that they've been in there a few months, that wall is probably necessary, but the $113,000 price tag is ridiculous. So I don't know how we figure out a better better price to get that. If you, yeah.
I did provide some visual aids there.
Yes, thank you very much. So we got pictures.
It was suggested to do that. The original thought was just putting up some barricades or some railing, which we can do in-house for about $3,000. A contractor to do the same thing we would do would be about 15 to 20K. So there's an option for us to do it cheaper. It's just that was kind of a suggestion to kill multiple birds with one stone.
Well, I think it'll probably be a necessity in the future, and with the heating costs would probably end up paying for itself over time. Essentially, I just want to clarify what you were saying. We have to do something, whether it's a railing or a barricade.
iCrimp is requiring it.
Yes, yeah, so we have to make that
Which
change no
one?
matter what.
Yeah. The railing,
Okay.
yeah.
Right. And so that would be 15,000, let's say.
Yeah, or if we did it in-house, we've got all the material and all the equipment to do that, to bend the pipe and all that stuff. It would be time, basically.
Right.
And then
Cost?
about 3,000 in cost.
So,
We would have a contractor. We can just put another contractor.
sure, yeah, that's no problem. But my deal is there any way to, I mean, it's not time yet, obviously, to go out for more quotes, but, I mean, maybe I would be willing to say, okay, 85,000. If you can get it done for 85,000, great. If you can't, put up the barricades and we'll just keep, it's just not gonna get any cheaper, I don't think, so.
Yeah, and part of that is to use one of those sections for the fourth part of the wall for the classroom in the future. So that was why it was kind of thought of as an alternate, I guess.
Brandy, I have a question for you. The depreciation, is this a depreciated item?
It would be improvements to the building, so yes, it would be depreciated.
Yeah.
As far as the years, that's something that Keith is in charge of, so I'd have to ask him how many years.
Yeah, the only thing with this building that I think is appropriate is that we don't pull things from different budgets that, the county bought this building. It was an older building. Money had to be put into it. So all the money that's being put into it today should be put into it as to make it move-in ready, and not something that comes out of an elected official's budget necessarily, because that building was purchased with no idea of what it was going to be used for. But if we're going to use it, we have to pay the money in order to make it move-in ready.
It still comes out of their budget, but it's not,
Had a budget under the board for the move-in.
It was fund
What I
balance.
was told, yep, was the
Yeah.
move-in. So that all got spent, and they moved in, and so that budget was under the board for exactly what you said. It was to get it move-in ready. And my understanding was, now that they're moved in, they have additional requests, like iCrimp came through. And so if you would consider these KC North requests as move-in as well, we could move them back under the board as just, I had interpreted them as
Well,
post-move-in, and so I had them all go in the sheriff's.
I mean, like the
maintenance budget.
asphalt,
Okay,
that was like that when we took possession of the building. It really should have been in there, especially if it was unsafe.
okay,
That's kind of the way I look at it, is that it should all be lumped in as one, so it's all encapsulated in basically the same, account,
okay.
as opposed to kind of scattered throughout. Because if someone asks, well, what did we really put into that building? How much did we spend? Someone has to know to go into different accounts to figure that out.
Okay, so as we go through all the KC North requests, if you feel that they should be considered move-in expenses, I will make a note and I will move them to the budget under the BOCC, where we paid for all the move-in expenses, and these additional repairs and move-in expenses will get budgeted there again. Does that satisfy what you're talking about?
Well, that's what I'm kind of thinking about. I mean, we just built a justice center, right? And if we didn't get asphalt, for example, somewhere around it, and then the prosecuting office moves in, would we pull that out of their budget, to put asphalt in?
Okay, so as we go through, we'll delineate which ones you guys feel are move-in and which ones may not be. Okay. So we were talking about the marine wall and the garage for SWAT and maintenance. So these are both at KC North, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so in terms of both of these requests, for now, are you wanting to leave them in? Are you wanting to delineate both of these as move-in expenses?
Thoughts on that?
I don't think the marine wall is move-in expense, because they can get it done very inexpensive with just putting a railing up. And again, I'm still willing to look at the marine wall, it's just a really high price for that. I'd need to know more about the garage for SWAT and maintenance, because I think that it's housed at 911 right now. And so that would just be something that I want to know what.
Yeah, it
What
is
we do-
enclosed. We did put garage doors on it, so it's enclosed. It's just not insulated. The roof leaks. There's some issues.
The one at 911?
No, the one at Kootenai North that we're wanting to refurb. It was just a giant open carport. So part of the cost was to add garage doors. And then this is just an extension of that.
Thoughts?
I think we should fix that.
Is this on the SWAT vehicle?
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, I don't really consider that a move-in thing. It's, again, they're in there, and so there's a lot of nice-to-haves and stuff that we should do. There is more stuff down here that's definitely move-in.
So the garage for SWAT and maintenance, it sounds like, I don't hear a lot of opposition for that. Do you want me to leave that in for now? And do you want me to mark that as a move-in expense or not?
I don't think either one of those are, but, I mean, I'm only one person.
What do you think, Mark?
I don't know, I was gonna ask what you thought.
Well, I just bring it up because, this is part of setting up a building. And normally when you move into a building, you have build-outs and things like that because that's the way you need it.
Every building I've ever built, we did that way.
Yeah. And so, it's brand new to them. And at this point, if the wall gets damaged, you want to add another wall, that's not move-in, that's later on.
But you don't have to throw it away if it's still working.
Well, no, exactly. I'm just saying like add another wall or whatever, unless they bang into it or whatever.
So Commissioner Eberline, do you consider these items as move-in expenses or not?
I wouldn't classify it as that.
Okay. Okay, so it sounds like we have two commissioners that would not classify them as move-in expenses for now.
Yep.
So I'm gonna leave them where they're at. I'm gonna mark them as they are, and we can always make changes later. Okay, line 22, we have a request again from the maintenance department for a forklift for $18,500 and a man lift for $12,500.
Have you had one before?
Yeah, the picture there is the single man lift that we've had for close to 30 years, and it's end of life. What's way past end of life, but we did get a double man that we've used a lot for the bigger dorm pods and exterior, and this is just to get into the smaller pods that we've used for years. It doesn't function anymore.
How many tons does it lift?
I think it's 600 pounds.
600 pounds?
As you can see, it's a single cage man lift.
Tom, I don't have that picture up here.
It was on the front. It's missing the cage.
Oh, well, that would be it. Okay,
Yeah, it's got a 3x3 cage on it for somebody to stand up in. Yep,
okay,
that's it.
okay.
Take that on and off to repair it.
Sure.
That's it.
I think both of them are pretty
That's the
useful.
one that you're using now.
No, we can't use it. We can't use it anymore. So we've had some contractors coming in and doing some of the lighting up high because we can't get to it. So they're putting up scaffolding and it's costing a lot more than it should. So,
That's probably very useful.
So do we have a second one for the jail then?
yeah, the jail got one for, I don't know if Jeremy wants to speak to that, for issues with inmates.
Right, but we're not asking for two lifts this
No,
year.
no, we already have one. They
For the
have
jail.
one. We're just asking to replace our single
Yeah, okay. And you're replacing the single with a double?
with a single with a single.
Single, okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like a plan.
There you
Okay, it
go.
sounds like we'll leave that one in for now. It's generally agreed. Okay, line 23 is a request from Sheriff Search and Rescue, and it's the $160,000 request to purchase land from the airport. And I believe at the sheriff's budget meeting, Commissioner Duncan said the appraisal is outdated, so a new one needs to be done. I don't know those details, so.
Yeah, and I did not have a chance to reach out to Gaston, so
We
I
looked at
will.
purchasing it just because after like 5 years of the lease rate, it would have paid for most of it.
Yeah, is that the area outside of the, north of the?
Yeah, I believe so. Or is it south?
It's on the back end.
The backside? So it's
West.
moving towards the airport.
All right, so I'll have Gaston just give us an update about what he thinks, because we did just get another recent appraisal of another place, another piece in the area, so.
How big of an area is that?
Let me see if it says on their request form.
I think it does.
Just roughly.
25,000 square foot lot to the west.
How many acres is that?
I don't know.
Less than a quarter, half, 42,000.
So I'll just mark that item as, we'll leave it in for now until we hear an update on the appraisal situation from the airport. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, I mean, land's not gonna get any cheaper, and it will not be used if it's with the airport. It will just sit there. So if KCSO is able to use it, then I think that's a benefit, so.
Okay.
You,
Just leave it
Mark,
for
you
now.
agree?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
All right, line 24 is a request from detectives. There is a request for a new vehicle for one of the new detective FTE requests, one of the requests for a new detective position. And then there's another request for a detective vehicle to replace a vehicle they trickled down to their maintenance department. So originally, maintenance had requested a vehicle in the FY26 budget. After the fleet management meeting, they cut that request and instead accepted a trickle-down vehicle from detectives. So detectives is now requesting a vehicle to replace the one they trickled down. So a request of $108,000 for 2 vehicles. One of those is to go along with one of their new FTE requests.
Could you repeat that again?
Huh?
Could you repeat that again?
So detectives is requesting 2 vehicles. One of them is for a new detective position they're requesting. And the other vehicle is to replace a vehicle that they gave to the maintenance department. Total is $108,000.
I suppose we leave it until we get to the A budget and decide what we're doing with a new detective, which we would ask the assessor to provide this information too, so I would ask for SIU to, how many detectives have we had since maybe 23, 24, 25? And what's the caseload been like? If we could just get that stat, that'd be helpful. And that just would be by next week when we have our A budget meeting, so no rush.
Okay.
Thoughts on that, Mark?
Good.
Line
it on.
Okay, we'll leave it in for now. Line 25 is a request from Patrol for a drone, $29,000. I believe this is due to facing regulations around Chinese-made equipment.
Thoughts on that?
I mean, we buy it now and the regulations never happen, or we don't buy it now, the regulations happen, and then we have to buy something later.
How critical is this?
How critical is it?
Oh,
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Under Sheriff Brett Nelson. We use this for a various amount of activity, whether it be search and rescue, traffic collisions, crime scenes, search and rescue, missing children. It's deployed normally, if not daily, on a weekly basis for any type of those incidents. It is utilized on a repetitive basis, and it gives us eyes in the sky that we can't compare for not only for officer safety, but for the various other means. It's a necessity to carry out various functions within the organization. Again, as Commissioner Duncan spoke, we currently have several drones, but if and when the China ban goes in, none of those will be operational, and we'll be out with those without any we can utilize in the downtime.
So again, it's just risk management, right? So if we don't do it, we risk having none of our drones operational, then there will be a huge price increase, my guess is, for non-Chinese drones.
I would guess so.
So keep it.
I think so.
All right, so I'm gonna mark that one as approved for
Yep.
now. Line 26 is a request from Patrol to use their OHV funding to buy a UTV. $36,000. Do you need more details?
Thoughts on that?
No, I think we already have 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's make it an even 5. It's a 4-seater, and we have 2 2-seaters, a 4-seater and a 6-seater, so it's probably ideal to get another 4-seater, and then that way the 2011 2-seater would be, well, they don't use that out in about. Yeah, 2015 2-seater would just be for the smaller trails and stuff, but I'm fine with it from OHV funds.
What do you say, Mark?
That's correct.
There you go.
All right, we'll mark that as yes for now. Line 27, this is a request from Animal Control for a pickup truck, $58,000.
Thoughts on that?
Well, I did not realize that we had 3 animal control people, because I've only dealt with 2, and so I suppose if we have 3, we probably should have 3 trucks.
There you go, Brandy.
All right, we'll mark that one as yes. Next on line 28 is a request from the Sheriff Admin Department, a new vehicle for their new recruiting sergeant FTE request. So this kind of goes along with the FTE. So if you want, you can wait to decide on this one until you decide at the personnel meeting if you're gonna approve that personnel request.
Does that work for you?
Yes.
Mark?
Yep.
Yes.
There you go.
Line 29 is a request from the Sheriff Admin Department again. $14,000 for ArcGIS migration and $11,000 for voice stress analysis software. The ArcGIS is a required system migration, it sounds like, for continued product enhancement and support.
Thoughts on that?
Under Sheriff, how many examiners are you looking at? It's $700 a year to ongoing costs.
In reference to the voice stress analyzer, initially, we're gonna have 2 background investigators, and then next year, we'd like to ask for a detective because it can be utilized for criminal investigations. Obviously, this was looked at for expediting our background process. Right now, we're currently spending about $300 for exporting our polygrapher analysis because when ours is tied up or days off, we have to contract out. This, albeit getting over the initial cost the training, et cetera, time we can go directly from completing an investigation or an interview and go walk right over and do this voice analysis. So it saves us a lot of time on the backside for scheduling and purposes of that nature. So getting back to your question, initially 2 background investigators, then ultimately a detective, if not 1 or 2 in the future, to utilize for both background investigations and criminal.
So let's just say 2,000 ongoing cost.
So drones come from China, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so how many of these GIS things do they, is it that from China too? Or is that USA stuff?
So ArcGIS migration,
That I'm not certain, but I believe the provider is ESRI, which is located in Redlands, California.
That's good.
I only know that because my father used to work for that organization once he retired, so I do know that's what we use on a predominantly daily basis.
I'm glad America has something left.
can you remind me what that is? I don't know why I don't have,
The GIS,
yeah.
that's our mapping software. And for full transparency, with our ongoing negotiations with Motorola, we're trying to see if that's going to be part of the contract, but yet we're still in the midst of working through that. So we're not certain that's what's being presented to you in our budget. We've worked and tried to determine if it could be utilized out of 911 funds, but we have yet to determine that. So it could be ultimately pulled at a later date.
Okay, for now.
Sounds like, Mark, you want to keep it in for now? There you go.
Okay, I'm gonna mark those as approved for now. Line 30, these are requests that are in the jail's 5-year plan. They all relate to KC North. So there's the employee parking lot, patrol sidewalk, phase 2 electrical, public parking lot, and bulletproof window tinting. Total for those is $287,000. Are those items that you feel should be considered move-in costs for the building?
If I was in there and somebody was shooting at me, I think I would like to have some bulletproof glass.
Okay, Commissioner Duncan?
Yeah, that's fine for now. And this would be good with move-in costs.
Okay, so I'm gonna move those to the BOCC's budget for KC North then. I'm gonna mark them as approved for now. Line 31 is also the sheriff's jail 5-year plan project. There is a request for an intercom system replacement in the jail for $115,000, a jail water heater for $14,000, and a jail slider for $57,000.
Is that stuff all junk now?
That'd be a question for the sheriff's maintenance department.
Or is there a little bit of life left?
The sliders have been an ongoing project. They're end of life. They've been end of life for about 20 years. So we're switching from pneumatic to electric, and then eventually we'll get rid of our pneumatic system. As far as, what was the other?
The jail water heater,
Oh, the water
Oh,
heater,
yeah.
that's in the sheriff's office, and that's about 20 years old. So it's
And-
time to replace it. It's leaking.
and an intercom system.
That is original to the jail, and it's out of life.
Dead?
Yeah.
How much is the intercom, well, obviously not now, but how much was the intercom system used as opposed to radios?
It's the tower communicating with the inmates,
Oh, okay,
so it's over the speaker or the call buttons.
okay. I am good with all of those.
Mark, where are you at?
I might have started with a new building instead of fixing something that was broken down.
Keep it in there for now.
All right, keep it in for now. Line 32 this is the patrol fleet budget. Is a request for 9 regular patrol vehicles and then 1 canine vehicle for a total of $964,000.
Thoughts?
Well, I kind of don't want to go backwards. and have more to fund later. It's just a lot of cars. So I say keep in for now and make it one of those things from the interest portion.
How many do we currently have?
How many vehicles in our fleet?
Well, patrol vehicles and K-9 vehicles.
We currently have 4 full-time vehicles and I believe 2 spares for canines. One of which of our current canine vehicles, if you will, has been deemed a lemon. It's down more than it currently is because the air conditioner is repeatedly going down, which is imperative for the canine in the back of the vehicle.
I would probably be in the same boat if I had to sit in the back of a pickup.
So we'll keep it for now.
Okay, I'm gonna mark that as keep for now, and I'm gonna change the funding on that to be property tax so that it can be offset by interest revenue. Line 33, this is building and grounds, the facilities 5-year plan budget. So there's a $667,000 request for elevator repairs, $129,000 for HVAC controls, and $75,000 for new windows. And I know Jeff presented these at his budget meeting individually, but I can look at his request forms if you need more details.
No, I think we've been putting off the elevator rehab for 5 years now. HVAC controls, I think the upgrade's necessary with the new addition, and then the windows have to be replaced, so I'm comfortable with all of those. And we can go to that line item if we want to, if we have money left over from the 2 million in property tax and back some of that out of the 5-year plan.
If we need to use more tax for interest, we can come back to this line.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good with you? Okay.
Okay, that's a keep for now. Line 34 is a request from the enhanced 911 budget. It's 2 battery replacements for Mason Butte and Micah Peak, funded with enhanced 911 restricted funds.
What's the longevity on those?
I'm not sure.
The longevity on the batteries.
Well, these are 10 to 20-year-old replacements right now, and they've been phased in since 2017. They replace a certain amount of cells each year, and this is ongoing. And it's just basically to buy us time when those repeater sites go down, that battery backup kicks in, allows our guys enough time, days to get up there to make those replacements. It's an insurance policy.
What's the longevity of it?
Sorry,
How long can they last?
10 to 15 years.
I'm good with it.
You good with that, Mark?
I am.
Okay.
All right, mark is keep. The next line, 35 and 36, are a combined request for a total of $95,000 for a new vehicle for the enhanced 911 director. The funding is split between enhanced 911 dollars and property tax.
Thoughts on that?
I guess more questions. I understand that Colin has a rig to get up and down the mountain. How often does the 911 director have to do that? Do we actually need, duplicate vehicles to go up and down the mountain, especially when we also have a side-by-side?
Also have what, side-by-sides?
Yeah,
I was told in speaking to Lieutenant Howard, the necessity is there because of, and Andy, feel free to step in. The reality of it is in addition to Colin, we sometimes are splitting our resources to go in different directions. So we're doing 2 things at one time with the personnel. Andy, if you want to enlighten.
They do travel in tandem as well, and they carry separate gear on each of the rigs. The all-wheel drive doesn't get up those mountains. And that's what the current director is driving. It's actually a patrol vehicle that needs to go back to patrol. That vehicle that we're asking for would stay with the current director and future directors.
okay. It's just really expensive, so.
Additionally, the lifespan, correct me if I'm wrong, Captain, is over 10 years.
Yep. Because it's not gonna get driven like a police vehicle.
Right. Now that makes it a little bit more palatable.
Thoughts, Mark?
We need it, we need it.
Keep
Just
it
wanna
for
make
now.
sure we need it.
Then mark as yes for now. Line 37 is a request from the assessor's office. This is installing the electronic door access to the doors on their external office entrances on the second floor of this building. $31,000.
What this does is it creates continuity throughout both of our buildings, so they're all in the same system, right? So one prox card for the entire system.
Correct, it's the same, the new system that IT is installing in this building.
Yeah. And I think currently, right now, they're using those little punch ones that are over the doorknob.
What's the
And
cost of all those?
$31,000.
Yeah, I get that, but there's more than just that building.
So that's for 5 doors.
Pardon?
That's 5 doors in the assessor's area for 31,000. And again, the whole building is going to that system. It's just those 5 doors aren't on the system today, whereas all the other ones are.
Okay.
It's just getting them to the new system.
So it'll hook up to the new system?
Yeah.
And with all the buildings that we have.
Yes.
And they have to string wires right now, because there's no pads there, and prox card readers. And the other thing is it just allows a little more timeliness when it comes to if someone leaves, you can quickly disable the card so someone doesn't have access to it. Where when you have a code, you actually have to go in there, you have to have someone who can go in there and clear out that code and provide a new code.
So can we do that from interest?
That's what's currently being budgeted for, yep.
Okay.
So I'll mark that as approved for now. Line 38 is the request from the elections department for their new elections system. It's $2 million and it's being funded from their assigned fund balance. And the clerk gave you an entire presentation, but if you have other thoughts, or mark as approved or cut for now.
No, I think it's pretty much the only one that's available to us going to the new certification system.
Yowzers.
Now
It
it's
is.
expensive.
But it'll be lasting 10 years.
We hope.
Yes, at least 10 years, and Ada County's actually, they're already on HART. They went to HART in 2015. Bonneville, I think, was first on HART in 2014, but the new 2.0 certification, the Vanguard Verity, is coming out. They're any day now, they get the 2.0 certification, the VVSG certification. And Ada is gonna be purchasing the Vanguard precinct counters too, and moving to that for election day, and then the central count too for absentees. And ES&S is not in that process of moving to 2.0 just as yet
Sure.
with the EAC.
But I guess longevity makes it a little bit more tolerable.
Yes. The other thing too is we do get that election consolidation money from the state. We have to operate running 53 taxing district elections that depend on us to run their elections. And since 2011, we've been getting that money from the state. And that is estimated, I think I said $4.5 million that we received since 2011.
But
So this year, we're getting $400,000 from the state.
Yeah, but if you just go, if you base it $400,000, that would take 5 years to make it up. And if it's gonna last 10 years, then I think we're gonna be ahead of the game.
Yeah, and there is more talk that I've heard between legislators and even some state officials, you know, looking at these odd year elections based on turnout. Are they going to consolidate elections even further? And if they do that, that means on election day, poll workers will be faced with more ballot faces in front of them that they will have to hand out, which likely you will definitely need to move to print on demand or ballot on demand.
Yeah, I'm good.
Keep it.
keep it for now. The last one, line 39, is a request from community development for one vehicle for $32,000.
Recommendation from fleet management is to purchase that.
What color do they want?
I'd have to ask them.
Why?
Is that something else that can be done with the interest? Okay.
All right, keep for
I'm
now.
good.
So that was all I had to go through today. Great job, everybody. I'll make a couple of the small changes that we discussed and send you the updated summaries.
All right, well, thank you.
Yes.
Brandy,
Yep.
can you get some kind of an idea of where we would be at with the costs for this whole thing?
For the entire budget?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's what I started the meeting with. That is the preliminary summary, which is this document. So if you look at that, right now, total requests for the FY26 budget is $145 million. And that includes solid waste. So that's on the first paper that I printed and put in your guys' packet. So you can,
So complete with all the wish list.
huh?
Complete with all the wish list.
Yep, that's with all the wish lists included, and the board has to decide what they're gonna cut out. So we made progress today. We're gonna go farther into the deficit because we're gonna use more interest for capital, and that's gonna force you to make cuts to A and B budget to balance the budget. Because what we're trying to do is reduce ongoing costs so that those are not falling to interest revenue. So, our next meeting next week, would you pull that up for me? So our next budget meeting is 2 hours, it's our personnel meeting, and that is gonna be Wednesday, June 18th from 2
Is
to
that
4.
yours?
We have a lot to get
Yes.
through in that meeting.
Okay. All right, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next up, item 2, FY26 Fleet Management Committee Recommendation. It's an action item with Director Nick Snyder.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Nick Snyder on behalf of Fleet Management. Although I would like to start with Lieutenant Plankifus should be giving this presentation, but he shunned his duty, so I just want to make sure that's clear. He'll make it up to me. Was the board's aware the function of our Fleet Management Committee is to ensure those vehicle replacement requests meet board policy? We provide recommendations as to which vehicles may be transferred to other departments and submit a final recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. So with that said, on May 21st, Fleet Management Committee met to review all the vehicles requested for fiscal year 26, as well as we assess potential transfers of existing inventory to other departments, commonly referred to as trickle-down. And at the conclusion of that meeting, a recommendation was drafted and submitted to the auditor's office on the 27th, which memorialized our committee's findings. That committee concluded that their recommendation would include 17 new vehicles, 2 trickle-downs and 1 potential trickle-down, which Director Falcon covered, to a total cost of $1,406,916. Commissioners, do keep in mind that some of that could change, as Director Falcon explained. Some of them are contingent upon positions through KCSO. Some of those trickle downs are needed. I would like to point out that of all the vehicles, they're all important. In review of this, I was looking at the KCSO maintenance vehicle. I wanted to bring to the board's attention. It's a 2008 with 208,000 miles, woefully out of policy. And in my opinion, I think the committee's opinion very much needed. So again, KCSO maintenance is one the board should take a particular look at. They're all important, but I wanted to point that one out. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. The report, you should have the report. And again, Director Falcon has touched on the dollars for that.
All right, thank you.
I'm sorry, Director Snyder, to put you on the spot. I had a question, and if you don't know off the top of your head, that's okay. I noticed in the animal control capital request, they said that their request for a truck is to replace an aging vehicle, and that aged vehicle could be trickled down. did that truck get considered to get trickled down maybe to community development, who's requesting a vehicle, or was it not?
It was one of the two, and I don't think, and I'll let community development speak to it, I'm not sure that's what they're looking for. I think they were looking for an SUV, something fuel efficient, all-wheel drive to meet their needs, but I defer to Director Callahan to answer that.
Thanks, Director. Snyder, Commissioners, that's exactly what we're looking for, something like that for the inspectors, all-weather vehicle terrain that we can use. They've got to haul a bunch of stuff around, things like that. Pickup simply won't do for their position. But we actually got one transferred down from Parks and Waterways that we do use. So we've got 13 vehicles. We've got 4 trucks in the inventory.
All right, thank you.
Commissioners, may I speak for 1 second?
Yeah.
Dennis Klinkafus to defend myself against the Director of Parks and Waterways. I'm just kidding. The vehicle in question, the animal control vehicle, is set to be trickled down and has been spoken for by Director Vollers from the county maintenance. So we do have a home for that vehicle, that specific one, so.
Okay.
Thank you. Any questions, thoughts?
No, I think we're just going to go through the regular system and with this information, and I appreciate the committee's work.
All right, thank you. Mark, anything?
Good.
No. Okay, thank you very much. That concludes the business side of this. Public comment. Anyone online? No? Okay, 3:01, meeting adjourned. Thank you.